The series against Ireland has come at a massive cost for Rassie, Rasmus and the Springboks. The Springboks have been dealt a quadruple injury blow ahead of the Rugby Championship. These players include Marx, Franco Morat, Peter Steph and Edwell Foma. In this video, we're going to dive into these injuries, what caused them, and more importantly, who should come in and replace these extremely vital players to the Springbok system. I would love to hear what you guys think down in the comments. Who do you think should come in and replace these players? Leave this video a like, and if you haven't, please absolutely murder that subscribe button. Still about 85% of you that watch this channel on a regular basis are not subscribed. It helps the channel grow, reach more people, reach more rugby lovers. So please hit that subscribe button. Now for Marx, he was injured in the second test against Ireland due to that croc roll that Caelan Doris and James Ryan sort of, when they cleared him out of that ruck, you saw, I think it was James Ryan landed on his leg, and that has now resulted in Marx fracturing his tibia. I don't know if you know too much about biology, but it's extremely difficult to fracture your tibia, so it is quite a serious injury, and they haven't really put a time span on when he's going to be back, but it's most likely going to be after the Rugby Championship. So we're probably only going to see Marx in November in the UK playing against England, Wales and Scotland, which is extremely sad for Marx. I mean, he got injured in the Rugby World Cup. He's just come back and played sort of 2 or 3 tests for the Springboks, and now he got injured again. Caelan Doris did end up getting a yellow card for that incident. Many people think James Ryan should have probably got the yellow card, and it's even, you can even argue that they probably should have received a red card for that croc roll. Now, we're not going to cry over spilt milk. The result is what the result was, but Marx is a very, very influential, impactful player within the Springbok system. We've seen him come off the bench against Wales, and then in the 2 tests against Ireland. You saw him come on in that second test. He came on and immediately got a penalty for South Africa. So while he is one of our best hookers, it does leave space for some people to come in, for Rassie to blood some new players and really start building that depth in the hooker position. Because since sort of the World Cup, we've relied on Bongi Mbonambe and Marx to sort of play that hooker position, and they've done so incredibly well. Now, for the Rugby Championship, and as we look forward, obviously the team has already been announced for Portugal. So we're going to speak about players who can replace him in the future in the Rugby Championship, who's going to be playing against Australia. Now, Bongi Mbonambe will probably start. I mean, he is the most capped hooker out of the bunch that we can choose from at the moment, and he probably will have to shift from sort of playing that 40-minute stint to a 60-minute stint. Now, against Portugal, Rassie has announced that Johan Grobler will be starting against Portugal, and Andre Hugo Venter will be coming off the bench. So those are 2 options that Rassie Erasmus could definitely use in the Rugby Championship. Johan Grobler was in phenomenal form for the Bulls. Andre Hugo Venter had a very, very good season for the Stormers. So we are starting to build our depth there just a little bit. You also have the likes of Jan-Hendrik Wessels, who can play prop and hooker. He is still very young, and Rassie's testing him out here against Portugal this week, so it is going to be interesting to see how he goes and if he can be an option coming off the bench for someone like a Bongi. Then the final option that Rassie probably has is Joseph Dweba. We saw him get added to the squad before Ireland, and it might have even been the Wales squad, but Joseph Dweba does know the system in the Springbok side. He has been sort of shunned a little bit from the Springbok side in recent years, but those are the options I see for now. Let me know in the comments who you would be selecting as your hooker and replacement hooker for those Australia tests. Bongi will most likely start, and then probably Johan Grobler will come off the bench. Again, depends how they go this week against Portugal. Andre Hugo Venter could definitely put his hand up and be the replacement hooker for the Rugby Championship. We then move over into the next player that got injured, and that is Franco Morat. Now, Franco had a decent season against Ireland. I don't think he was anything special. I also don't think Eben Etzebeth was too special in this series against Ireland. But Franco Morat has now been ruled out for 6 weeks due to a broken leg. We saw him hobble off the field, and it's a massive blow. But again, it's opportunity for us to build the depth in that lock position. Against Portugal now, we've seen that Salman Morat and Archie Snyman have been selected. Salman Morat is captaining against Portugal. So Rassie Erasmus and the Springboks clearly see him as a future leader for the Springboks, and rightfully so. I mean, he captained his high school team, he captained under 18 Boks, he captained the under 20 Boks, he captains Western Province and the Stormers. So he's kind of built for that role. I've seen a lot of comments in yesterday's video about the squad announcement for Portugal that a lot of people don't really rate him. But I do think we need to give him some time, right? He's only had a couple of caps for the Springboks. He's a big, very, very good lock for the Stormers. So I think once he finds his feet, he will be quite an integral part of the Springbok side. Now, looking forward to Australia. Who is going to replace Franco Morat? Well, we've got Archie Snyman, Salman Murat, Ben-Jason Dixon is an option. Ulrich Lowe is probably an option. We're probably going to see starting is Eben Etzebeth and Archie Snyman against Australia, with probably Salman Murat coming off the bench. Ben-Jason Dixon might be on the bench for that utility. Ulrich Lowe might also be on the bench for that utility, that lock. They can play lock and flank. But Franco Morat is a big loss, 6 weeks, which means he's probably only going to be back for the New Zealand test in September. We then move on into probably the biggest loss from this Ireland series, and that is Pieter-Steph du Toit. He was absolutely phenomenal. I thought he was probably our best player over the 2 games. He's been ruled out for 4 to 6 weeks, and he's set to miss the first Australian test. And maybe, or arguably, the second one. Like I said, I do think he was our best performing player from the 2 tests in Ireland. So he's a big player to miss, but again, it just provides us with an opportunity to test some young blood. In this Portugal test, Rassie has named Pepsi Buthelezi, Ben-Jason Dixon, and Evan Roos to start. So those could definitely be an option, but I think replacing Pieter-Steph is going to be more of the switch around from that team that faced Ireland. I think Kwagga Smith will probably move into that 7 role. Jasper Visser should be back and will fit into that number 8 role. So although it's a big loss, I don't think too much is going to change. I do think Kwagga will move to 7. Jasper Visser will move to 8. But there are other options. Marco van Staden could also slot in that number 7 position. Although he didn't have a great series against Ireland, he is vastly experienced. He had a good season for the Bulls. Ben-Jason Dixon, who's now starting against Portugal in that number 7 jersey. If he has a good game, he is definitely an option against Australia because, like I said, he provides that utility for flank as well as lock. You got Pepsi, you got Evan Roos, who can also play 7. We've seen for the Stormers sometimes Diamani played 8, Evan Roos played 7. Then you got Ulrich Lowe, who I think the Springboks have been sleeping on for a little bit. He's a very, very good rugby player. We're going to see him come off the bench this week. But again, one of those players that can play 7, can play lock, provides that utility. And then Ruan Venter has had a very good season for the Lions, and again, coming off the bench in this Portugal test, if he puts his hand up, he could be finding himself in that 7 jersey to replace Pieter-Steph du Toit. Then the final player that is out and injured, and then Rassie Erasmus announced, is Edwell Foma. Now, he didn't pick up the injury in the Irish series, obviously, but he did get released from the Springbok squad to go and play Currie Cup last weekend, and that's where he got injured. So he's going to be out for 6 weeks, which is a little bit disappointing for him because he was very, very impressive in that Wales test. And I think if he wasn't injured, he would be playing in this test against Portugal. We've seen that Kurtley Arendse has come in for Edwell Foma. Well, I'm assuming Edwell Foma would have played there. Kurtley Arendse now has to play there. So while Edwell is a big miss, it's not the biggest of problems because Kane Moody should be back in the side training and will probably be ready for that Australia test. So Kane Moody gives us another option at wing, gives us another option at outside centre. But we do still have Kurtley Arendse, we do still have Cheslin Colby. So we have so many wings that can fill in for Edwell Foma, and that Edwell probably wasn't in the side that is going to be facing Australia. So it's not too much of a loss, but still, we need to work on our depth. Kane Moody being back is a massive plus. We've got Mpimpi. What is a positive about the Rugby Championship coming up and these injuries that have sort of come in is that Rassie now has an opportunity to test some young players, to give some young players some opportunity and to really start building that squad depth. I think Rassie Erasmus's hand has now been forced a little bit, especially in the forward department with Malcolm Marx, Franco Morat and Pieter-Steph du Toit being out. So it is going to be good to see some young blood get some very, very high level experience. It's going to be interesting. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Who should come in for those players? Leave this video a like, and if you haven't, please absolutely mur that subscribe button. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy. Peace.